Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today for the webinar on ASEAN energy transition, energy efficiency, and conservation. My name is Nella, and I'm the Communication Officer at the ASEAN Center for Energy. Just a little reminder before we get started, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box on the control panel, and then the moderator, which is our executive director, will bring them up on a question and answer session. Now, without further ado, I will turn the time over to Dr. Nuki Agia Utama to deliver the opening remarks and to lead the floor as well. Dr. Nuki has an academic and research background as postdoctorate in Graduate School Energy Science, Kyoto University on life cycle energy analysis, energy scenario, and planning modeling. He is appointed as the Executive Director of the ASEAN Center for Energy and reporting directly to Ministries Energy in ASEAN member states. Dr. Nuki, the floor is yours. Hello, Dr. Nuki, I can hear your voice. Hello, Dr. Nuki.
Yes, thank you very much, Nella. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, colleagues from around the globe. I think today is a very great opportunity for us to meet online on this energy efficiency and conservation webinar on the series of ASEAN Energy Transition webinar. On behalf of the ASEAN Center for Energy, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the third ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation Dissemination event. As part of the program, ACE is having a webinar series on the various topics. Previously, we already had webinars on energy cooperation and outlook in the ASEAN, and also the renewable energy. Today, we will focus on energy efficiency and conservation. So before we get started, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who generously help us make this event come together to become success, particularly to distinguished speakers for their time and kind efforts in sharing perspective and insight with us. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, on the last 38th ASEAN Energy Minister Meeting on Energy, or AMEM, November 2020, has endorsed two flagship documents that play a crucial role in the region's energy cooperation. The documents are the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation Phase 2, 2021-2025, and also the 6th ASEAN Energy Outlook, or AO6. The 6th ASEAN Energy Outlook will provide us with an overview of the current energy landscape with some possible scenarios for policymakers and other stakeholders. It is also contains energy perspective by 2040 and its pathways for the region to be more resilient to enable energy affordability and sustainability. It presents comparative scenarios versus baseline, current energy planning, more implementation on RE and EE targets, as well as the implementation of SDG 7. Moreover, under the APEC Phase 2 on energy efficiency and conservation, market transformation initiative in favor of energy efficient technologies will be implemented in buildings, transportation sectors, and industrial sectors to achieve the 32% energy intensity reduction aspirational target by 2025 based on 2005 levels. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, considering the importance of the two documents, a dissemination webinar has been organized to reach all the public relevant parties and stakeholders. This webinar today aims to engage relevant parties and stakeholders for them to gain more understanding of the energy efficiency and conservation efforts in ASEAN. Moreover, this webinar is also aiming to improve ASEAN member states' capabilities to accelerate the energy transition and achieve the aspirational energy intensity reduction target under APEC Phase 2. I sincerely hope that by attending our webinar series, you will be able to get hands-on experience on energy efficiency in the ASEAN region, as it is regarded as one of the vital strategies for the energy transition to support the region's sustainable development. Thanks again, and very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you. Back to you, Nela.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nuki, for the welcoming remarks. I think you can now lead the floor as you are the moderator.
Again, thank you very much, Nela. For today's webinar, we're going to have four distinguished, very expert speakers coming from the GIZ, also coming from UNEP U4E, and of course, two speakers from the ASEAN Center for Energy. So I would like to introduce you the first speakers, and please kindly turn on your camera. Muhammad Rizky Krisnawan. He is Technical Officer of Modeling and Policy Planning Department in the ASEAN Center for Energy. And he's also a member of ASEP project, responsible for the development of the 6 ASEAN Energy Outlook as the energy modelers and contributors for several policy briefs, Energy Insight and Climate Insight, as well as technical reports in ACE. Before joining ACE, he is holding a Master of Engineer degree from University of Gadjah Mada, Indonesia, and he also worked as a project engineer in oil and gas contractor in East Kalimantan. His strong interest is in energy sectors, especially in research and analysis, which has brought him to work in ACE. His activities in ACE cover energy modeling, energy policy, and energy planning to support climate change mitigation from the energy sector in the region. He also actively representing ACE in various ASEAN official meetings and workshops. So that's the first speaker, Muhammad Rizky Krisnawan. The housekeeping of this webinar is you may speak and present your slides in 15 minutes and then continue with the other speakers. I think you may start the presentation, Mr. Rizky Krisnawan. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Nuki. Good afternoon, all attendees, participants from all over the world. So today I would like to present the findings from our flagship publications, the 6 ASEAN Energy Outlook, in regards to how to achieve the energy efficiency and conservation target in APEC Phase 2. My name is Muhammad Rizky Krisnawan. I'm the researcher at the Modeling and Policy Planning Department. Next slide, please. Yeah. In here, you can see in the development of ASEAN Energy Outlook series, ACE has taken a role as a growing regional think tank that serve the ASEAN member states. Supported by GIZ, ACE has gradually increased its capacity from only supporting data in AO4, which only counts around 20% from the total work, until able to conduct the modeling work by ourselves in-house in ASEAN Center for Energy. That's maybe the portion is around 70%. Next slide, please. Yeah, under the new ASEAN Energy Blueprint, so-called ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation Phase 2, ASEAN region has carried the new sub-theme on accelerating energy transition and strengthening resilience through greater innovation and cooperation, which translated into more ambitious on RE share target and also EI reduction target by 2025. As you may see in the below slide, that the regional target in 2025, ASEAN has the aspirational to achieve 23% RE share in TPS, as well as the 35% RE share in installed power capacity. For energy intensity reduction, we have the target, the 32% energy intensity reduction compared to the 2005 level. This is the more ambitious target that we have been agreed among AMS, because previously in EI the target is around 30%, and now we increase the target to be 32%. Next slide, please. Yeah. As the economy predicted to grow again in the post-pandemic, as energy demand will be soaring to around almost 1,000 MTOE by 2040, which around 65% is still dominated by fossil fuel in the baseline scenario. However, ambitious efforts on regional RE share and also EI reduction are able to save around almost 33% in APS scenario by 2040. Lesser demand also has a positive effect to the supply side. In the 2040, around 28% reduction could be achieved from baseline scenario to APS scenario if ASEAN could achieve the targets. Next slide, please. And here you can see from the 2018 actual data sets from our ASEAN Energy Database System, AEDS, the energy intensity reduction in TPS already surpassed the regional 2020 target. We have the 2020 target around 20%. But in 2018, the data reflects that we have already achieved 21%. If ASEAN could maintain or speed up its pace and efforts regarding the energy efficiency and also RE implementations, under the APS scenario, ASEAN could achieve the 32.5% regional EI reduction target based on 2005 level. Next slide, please. As you may see in here, industry is holding the most shares of the ASEAN's TFEC, total final energy consumption, followed by transport, and then residential, commercial, and also other sector, like agriculture and also other sector. Around 13% saving from the 2025 could be attained by the state sectors that are able to address more energy efficiency efforts. Next slide, please. In here, you can see that 13% is came from the reduction from baseline to the country target that country already stated officially, so it could reduce the 8.5% reduction. And then if the country in ASEAN region put more and more efforts to achieve the regional target, we can achieve more 4.8% reduction from ATS, the country target, to the ATS, the regional target. So in total, we have the 13% energy intensity reduction. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, there are mainly 4 sectoral recommendation, especially for the high intensive energy consumption sector. The first one is industry. Industry, the recommendation is to put or to adopt more ambitious energy efficiency measures and emission standards. As industry holding the biggest portion, adopting both both recommendations at the same time could be more beneficial for industry itself and also can reduce a lot of energy consumption that happening in the baseline scenario. For the transportation sector, stronger supply and demand side policies on biofuel and also electric vehicle adoption should be adopted immediately, while also increasing the fuel economy standard and also investing in public transport to reduce self-driving. Last but not least, we have residential and also commercial that needs the stronger energy efficiency requirements for buildings through enhanced building codes and also efficiency standards for home appliances. That's also being considered to be adopted instantly. So these sectoral recommendations will be beneficial for ASEAN member states to achieve the regional target. More detail on the sectoral recommendation will be presented by my colleagues after me. I think that's all from presentation from my side. Back to you, Dr. Lucky. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Nuki, I think you are mute, still on mute.
Okay, thank you again. Sorry. Thanks, Mas Rizky, for the nice presentation. For all of the attendees, if you have any question, please write it down in this chat platform. So later on, we will collect all of the question and deliver it to all of the speakers. So, Mr. Rizky Krishnawan, thank you very much once again for your presentation. For the next speakers, I would like to invite Mr. Bintang Widana. Can you turn on your camera, please? Mr. Bintang Widana, he is a technical officer of the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Department at the ASEAN Center for Energy, and he has been working on the CSPF projects to harmonize the residential air conditioner energy efficiency standards in the region under the same metrics. Bintang has an educational background in advanced materials, energy efficiency and conservation with a master's degree from Socio-Environmental Energy Science, Kyoto University, Japan. And he has been engaging in sustainable development through the energy sector, especially with technology and community development. He also believes the cheapest energy is conserved energy, and he has the potential to enhance energy security in the most cost-effective way. So your time is 15 minutes to present your slide. Please, the floor is yours, Bintang. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nuki, for the short presentation of me. So I would like to give my presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, as we can see here, it's already been explained by my previous partner, Mr. Rizky. This is clearly show a shift by ASEAN toward low carbon economy following the global trend. through higher efficient energy efficiency appliance, efficient industrial sector development of digital and service industry. Although the GDP of the ASEAN is still increasing, the reduction in the energy intensity will be achieved through strategic regional action with focus in building, transport, and industrial sector while enhancing the participation in the private sector, research institute, financial institution, accelerator, and cluster to bring the positive impact for developing a sustainable energy future. Next slide, please. This is what have been done in the previous of ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or the APEC Phase 1. We have a harmonization of maps for the air conditioner and also the lighting by the 37 mm. Also, the future of cooling in ASEAN indicate that cooling will become the single largest driver of energy demand growth in the ASEAN, and we have to tackle this even further. And again, about the ASEAN Energy Efficiency and Cooperation Award that has been running as a annual event in the ASEAN Center for Energy, and through this event we push forward to the each IMS to create a breakthrough in the energy efficiency technology. Next slide, please. This is about the EENC institutional and policy framework, the AMS. As you can see, most of the AMS already have beginning in the commercial and industrial sector. However, in the standard and labeling, although we have a maps currently for the air conditioner, we have already regional setting, and we are aiming for the next is the lighting. So hopefully standard and labeling will be achievable by all of the AMS country. Lastly, for the transport, that is the most lacking in the ASEAN, still need development there. Next slide, please. About the financing policy, incentive and tariff reform as subsidy in energy or electricity, including some of the Asian countries such as Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam have been able to develop more advanced financial scheme, frameworks, and instruments to finance EENC. However, we still need more financial instruments to finance energy efficiency projects. Traditional financing instruments are used to pay for energy efficiency program and related technology product and services. However, we need more like emerging or specialized instrument that is used to reinforce energy efficiency initiative, clean and renewable energy installation project. By supporting this energy efficiency activity and other clean energy installation, it could give us a ticket to a more energy efficiency, lower energy intensity. Next slide, please. This again to show that we have two targets here, and it has been explained before. So the first one is target created by the AMS. So this is like the NDC that all of the AMS or the ASEAN member states created their own scenario. However, we in the APEC targeting another more aggressive reduction in the energy consumption. Next slide, please. Through the APEC Phase 2, we have 5 outcome-based scenario. That is, first is to expand, harmonize, and promote energy efficient standard and labeling. Second is the enhanced participation of private sector and financial institution. Third is strengthen sustainability of energy efficiency in building. Fourth is pursue energy efficiency in transport. And fifth is advance energy efficiency and energy management in industry. Next slide, please. This is what have been done, or the initiative that has been done by the ACE. First of all, we have harmonized standard, that is the ISO 16358 and ISO 5151 through regional and national policy roadmap. Currently, most of the country has already accepted this standard for the air conditioner. And we can continue to the round-robin test of the national test laboratory in compliance with this standard. This can become a solid startup for the other appliances, and we are currently also managing to handle the lighting. Next is the ASEAN regional lighting market assessment. Oh no, sorry. Okay. So this is again we already have the regional lighting, and we are trying to give the support to the AMS to adopt the national policy roadmap. From these two, this is also to emphasize on this importance of standard and labeling, especially in the regional sector, to have a common effort in the region. Next is the organized business forum and matchmaking activity for EENC project. We have currently the AEBF in Sevilla, the ASEAN Energy Business Forum, and the Clean Energy sorry, I forget about this. Also the annual ASEAN Energy Efficiency Conservation Award to push further the implementation of the energy efficiency and conservation in the AMS. Oh, sorry, the Sevilla is the Clean Energy Future Initiative for the ASEAN Forum. Next is to promote energy management in industry. We have to increase the competitiveness and reduce energy consumption. Through this, we are currently having a certification and training in ASEAN for energy management that has been conducted through IMAS and currently under revamping. So IMAS is available in each country, and we are IMAS is ASEAN Energy Management Scheme. This is to allow better visibility and recognition of the effort made by the ASEAN. And the output of this training is the certification for energy manager and certification for energy intensive organizations. Lastly, through the product registration or PRS and Asian Energy Database or AEDS as an effort to digitize the national and regional energy database. As we stated before, the standard and labeling are important, and then the other function of it is to have a common effort and can be digitized in the same site, same software, like it's in the PRS or the AEDS. So it's easy to compare apple to apple and easy to replicate any success story from each IMS. Next slide, please. So there are 4 types of energy efficiency potential: technical, economic, achievable, and through program. And first, this is the potential in each sectoral. Adopting the higher efficiency equipment or machinery, heat loss recovery or industrial restructuring, through shifting from energy intensive to lower intensity manufacturing. In the ASEAN, currently the larger subsector are non-metallic minerals, food and tobacco, and chemical and petrochemical. Improving energy efficiency in high value adding sectors, that is the machinery, vehicle, and adding the renewable energy for the industry, may also become more economically attractive. This is the technical side, and then more to the achievable, that is the AMS show a trend to shift from industry to service or digital. Is the industry 4.0. This is a more low energy intensity than the conventional energy, the conventional industry. Next slide, please. Furthermore, on the residential, commercial, and building, IMS target shows saving achieved through energy efficiency scheme focused on home appliance, that is air conditioner and lighting. Also, we are starting to have a green building certification and a zero energy building movement. Also, in the latest trend in the building and residential, there is a growing electrification penetration, but accompanied by the RE, such as the solar cell that is dedicated to a single output, that is light or maybe the appliance for cooking, also for biogas, and appliance for cooking also and lighting. From here, the annual saving potential by 2040 are estimated at 144 terawatt-hour of electric consumption, and to transition of an efficient air conditioner, and further 17 terawatt-hour from residential refrigerator. Next is from transport. Here mostly about improving engine performance, that is promoting eco cars, especially in the city and the urban area. Also by introducing hybrid and electric vehicles. Although when introducing hybrid and electric vehicles, need further studies needed to confirm the effect on the electricity grid and also the main producer of the electricity. If the source is still coal, then maybe perhaps it's still debatable. Although in the ASEAN itself, automobile factory such as in Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam are already overhauled to start producing EV. And also in Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia are starting to use biofuel to subsidize the use of the fossil fuel. Next slide, please. Financing. So this is one of the most crucial factors in promoting EENC implementation in ASEAN. Business is thriving in ASEAN, but investors still holding back in the energy efficiency deals because it has a high risk and we are lacking of the insurance company. market and investment policy development is needed to attract the growing interest of the private sector and financial institution for giving insurance to the energy efficiency project in ASEAN. Next is technical capacity. So we also need technical capacity improvement in the private sector, especially because capacity building will increase the capacity of manufacturer and contractor to produce more energy efficient product and service. And on the other side, in the demand side, we need to increase the awareness of consumer to energy standard and labeling for using energy efficient appliance. Lastly, there is the market verification and enforcement. This is all for all stakeholder. It will include incentive and subsidies that make a non-cost effective efficiency option cost effective for the user. So it will become more easy to producer to create a energy efficiency product and for the user to choose a more energy efficient product. Next slide, please. I think this is the this is the end of my presentation. Back to you, Dr. Nuki. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Bintang, for your presentation. So you mentioning that the cooling become the highest energy demand in 2040, and also the total final energy consumption in industrial sector is very important. The largest is in non-metallic minerals industry. And you also mentioned that the ENC is a part of the important measures or activities in APEC phase 2. You also mentioned the product registration system and IDS concept, including the financing concept, technical performance, and also market verification. So once again, thanks for your presentation. So for the next presenter, I would like to invite Patrick Blake. Patrick is one of the program officers to be exact, is the program management officers. Yes, Patrick. For the Global Climate Action Unit in the Economic Division at United Nations Environmental Program, or UNDTIA, if I'm not mistaken, Patrick. Yeah. So I also used to work with the UNDTIA back in Bangkok a few years ago. Patrick Blake has been working at UNEP with the Energy and Climate brand since 2013. He focuses his efforts on the United for Efficiency initiative, which support countries in the transition to energy efficient lighting, appliances, and equipments. Patrick received a Master in Environmental Policy and Energy from Sciences Po in Paris, with the concentration on energy policies. And prior to that, he received a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from the University of Connecticut with a major in finance. Additionally, he has also obtained a certificate in global affairs from New York University. So for these opportunities, you may deliver your slide in 15 minutes. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nuki, for those nice remarks. And again, I'm Patrick Blake from UNEP, and today I'll present on mainly on energy efficiency opportunities in lighting, appliances, and equipment. We're doing a lot of these activities together with ACE in Southeast Asia, and we'll go through some of those activities today. Next slide, please. So just very briefly on where I'm coming from. I'm working on the United for Efficiency initiative, which is a global initiative. So we have projects throughout Latin America, Africa, and then of course Asia, and particularly in Southeast Asia. It's focusing on energy efficiency in the three products: lighting, appliances, and equipment, and brings together different public and private partners. So not only international organizations like UNEP, UNDP, but also private sector, so different manufacturers, and also NGOs. So developing many of the tools and resources under United for Efficiency together with those partners. And the objective is really to support the second goal of the UN Sustainable Energy for All initiative, which is doubling the global rate of improvements in energy efficiency. Next slide, please. So here you see broken down a bit more on the different products that we're working. And the reason for that is that they are the highest consuming products, and globally it is more than 50% of electricity consumption. So you see those products listed here. So including room air conditioners, lighting, motors, refrigerators, and transformers. But not only do they have the largest consumption, but there's also the savings opportunities as well. And that's what you see listed below. So for example, on the cooling sector that we heard about in the previous presentations, the savings opportunity from room air conditioners in particular, approximately 30%. And similar opportunities, I won't go through them all, but also for the other products as well. Next slide, please. So focusing in a bit more on Southeast Asia, this is based on an analysis we did and have been doing since 2015 that shows the savings opportunities that countries can achieve from energy efficient lighting appliances equipment. And that's in what you see here is for Southeast Asia. And the gray line is the business as usual scenario, so no policies being implemented. And then we did two policy scenarios, one a minimum ambition scenario and then a higher ambition scenario. And there you see the savings opportunities from those. Electricity savings of 197 terawatt hours, and that's equivalent to 90 power stations, 136 million tons of CO2 emissions. So supporting countries in meeting the net zero emission targets that many countries are making recently. But also other savings such as with electricity bills. So there you see 21 billion US dollar savings per year available to the consumers from these products. Next slide, please. And this just continues on from that analysis, broken down by country, and then also by the products. So we heard in the previous presentation from Bingtong, the savings opportunity from cooling, and that's really aligned with what we're presenting here. The gray area on the right-hand slide is air conditioners, and the yellow is residential refrigerators. Motors is the orange color. So there you do see the opportunities going out to 2040, but then some nearer term opportunities as well that we're working on the lighting sector in particular. Next slide, please. So those were the savings opportunities. But then opportunities for countries and different stakeholders to work together to really put in place policies and projects to help achieve those savings. So what we recommend is an integrated policy approach, and you see that listed on the left-hand side here. And that includes putting in place minimum energy performance standards, setting a floor for products to enter the markets, labeling, communications campaigns, and then financing. So whether it's on-bill financing or ESCO schemes that we also heard previously. But then also monitoring, verification, and enforcement. So it's important, of course, to develop a policy, but equally important is ensuring that those policies are properly monitored, the products are tested, and enforcement is done. And then throughout all that as well is environmentally sound management. So ensuring that lower global warming potential refrigerants are used in the cooling products, or environmental waste such as mercury in lighting products, or PCBs and transformers are properly handled. There's a lot more information on that. I don't have the opportunity to get to it today, but you can see that in the different guides that are listed here on the right-hand side. Next slide, please. So here I'll go into a number of the activities that we are working on together with ACE in Southeast Asia. And it's a broad range. So let's proceed and just go right to the next slide, please. So the first one we'll highlight is on the product registration systems that we're working together with ACE on. And if you could just go to the next slide, please. So there, once it comes up, it will show some of the benefits of developing a product registration system. So including first on what is a product registration system. A product registration system is a system that can be implemented, and products are entered into the system before they're entered into the market. So that allows for information such as the efficiency, the size of the product, the brands, and so on, go into the system. And this helps with monitoring and understanding the products that are in the market, and then also on the enforcement of policies in the market. So that an enforcement official can much more easily look at this system to understand what products are compliant, and if they're not and they're in the store, then of course they either need to be entered into the system or taken out of the market. We're of course doing this at the regional level to foster economic development and reducing trade barriers across countries. And finally, it also allows for more consumer information to be shared as well. Different consumer apps could also be developed from this. Next slide, please. On the next slide, you'll see on how a product registration works. So as I said previously, first the product needs to be tested before it's entered into the product registration system. Then it is the manufacturer or retailer or supplier puts in an application for that, and that would include the information that I mentioned on the brand, on the efficiency, on the size of it. Then a program manager or regulatory authority reviews that application and makes an assessment whether it is compliant or not. Then after that, the product is allowed into the market. What we are working on is that this is done not only in one country. There are a number of systems placed in Southeast Asia, but also connecting those systems throughout the region with the regional product registration system. Next slide, please. And that's what's presented on the next slide on the work in Southeast Asia. So there are national systems in a number of the countries, but what there is not is a regional system. So we partnered with ACE and have recently launched that system. That countries are now working on development of an API to transfer the data from their system into the regional system. That, of course, provides a number of benefits, allowing for exchange of knowledge and data on the products that are in neighboring markets. So that can be helpful to understand if a product's been tested or has been found to be non-compliant, that information is shared with neighboring countries as well. Next slide, please. And that's what you see here, and I briefly went over. Next slide, please. So on the next slide, it says what support can I get to implement the product registration system. So there on that slide, if you could just go to the next slide, please. It shows what is available as far as the regional system, and then also the implementation of the national systems as well. All right, so now just continuing on as far as on the lighting side, sorry, the slides are not quite aligned with where I am, but we'll continue from this point. On energy efficient lighting. So on the lighting side is, as you saw previously, opportunities for savings in the near term. There we have been working, building upon a regional roadmap on energy efficient lighting that was agreed to in September 2019 by the ASEAN member states. Since then, we've worked with the energy efficiency and conservation subsector networks on development of lighting national roadmaps. So through that, dating back to an in-person meeting in February 2020, we worked on development of national lighting roadmaps for each of those countries, and that really specifies the actions and the timeframes to develop and implement policies and actions for efficient lighting. On the next slide, if you can go to that, shows in some of the activities that are within the lighting national roadmap. So that includes specification of the test method for lighting products, but also on a minimum energy efficiency floor and the different testing infrastructure as well. And as I said, as the time frame for those to be implemented, of course, in an aligned manner, but also taking into consideration the different national needs of each of the countries. So those are available, and each of the countries is working within their national framework to have it implemented. Next slide, please. And I'll continue quickly, just noting the time. On the cooling sector, already noted the savings opportunity there, particularly on air conditioners, but also on refrigerators. And there, just a reference, we do have these savings assessments available. They are on our website, not only at the regional level, but also at the national level as well. Next slide, please. So here, just to highlight some of the main activities we do have ongoing in the cooling sector. On the refrigerator side, we are developing a status report on policies and the savings opportunity. On air conditioners, we have been supporting the updates of regionally aligned minimum energy performance standards for the cooling seasonal performance factor, and also a more ambitious efficiency level as well. So working with the member states and ACE on that. Other activities include sustainable public procurement, particularly, of course, with governments can take a leading role in their own procurement. So not only implementing regulations, but within their procurement, for example, on air conditioners, making sure that those are highly efficient and containing lower global warming potential refrigerants can really show leadership in that. And then finally, supporting ACE in some of the modeling efforts that we saw previously and incorporating the benefits of efficiency in lighting and appliances as well. Next slide, please. And just to highlight finally, one of the tools that we do have is on model regulations, and this has been supporting many of the activities I already mentioned on lighting and cooling. In that, what these are is a template that countries can use for development of regulations in their country. We've developed it based on the experiences globally, including in Southeast Asia, but also taking into account other regions as well. And it sets a minimum energy efficiency floor and takes into other considerations such as quality and the environmental impact of the product. And that's available for the 5 products you see listed here. And soon we'll also be releasing one on commercial refrigeration as well. Next slide, please. And just to, that's my last slide. And with that, thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and I'll hand it back to Dr. Nuki from ACE. Thank you.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much, Patrick, for the insightful and detailed explanation on the activities of U4E and also the activities on the how the U4E can create a leapfrogging the energy efficiency lighting appliances and equipments, and also interesting explanation on the appliances potential efficiency improvement. And you mentioned that the saving opportunities in 2040 is around 197 terawatt hours, quite big, yeah? And also including that the Indonesia has the biggest opportunity on saving electricity at 75 terawatt hours, quite big share. And you also mentioning the U4E integrated policy approach, and why should I implement PRS? Indeed, very interesting explanation. And how does a product registration system work? Perhaps plenty of questions later on coming from the audience, and including you explained to us the EE lighting roadmap, and of course the current activities on EE cooling. Indeed, very interesting, Patrick, for your presentation. So later on, I hope that already plenty of questions coming from the audience. I'm looking forward. And for the next presentation, I would like to invite Mr. Rizky Fauzianto. Mr. Rizky, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you, Pak Nuki.
Yes, he's currently a team leader of the Asean German Energy Program, or AGEP in short, the GIZ, and he completed his bachelor degree in a major on the informatics engineering at the Telecom Institute of Technology Indonesia, and then he pursued his master degree in sustainable resource management at the Technical University Munich, Germany. And at AGEP, his responsibility is for supervising the implementation of all AGEP Phase 1 and Phase 2 activities jointly with the ASEAN Center for Energy, with a total budget around 7 million euro for regional activities and publication. For example, the 5th and 6th ASEAN Energy Outlook, the ASEAN Regional Grid Integration Training Series, the ASEAN Energy Database System, the ASEAN Smart Grid and Grid Code Study, and also levelized cost of electricity for renewable energy technologies in ASEAN. So without further ado, I would like to ask you to lead the floor to present your finding or your interesting explanation on this energy efficiency and conservation. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Pak Nuki. Very good afternoon to all of you, and happy Ramadan to those who do the fasting. First of all, I would like to say thank you again to Pak Nuki, the Executive Director of ACE, and ACE colleagues for inviting me here. I will speak for maybe around 15 minutes onwards on GIZ support in the implementation of EENC under the UPHIKE. Next slide, please. Yes, as I only have 15 minutes, I tried to compress all information into these four parts in my presentations that you can see here, showing what was, is, and what will be the GIZ support to the APIC, not only from the regional projects, but also bilateral projects in some ASEAN member states, which of course can be scaled to the regional level. Next slide, please. And so who is AGEP and GIZ? Next slide, please. For those who might not familiar with GIZ, GIZ is a German state-owned agency. They're headquartered in Eschborn, Germany, that provides services in the field of international development cooperations. We have more than 20,000 staffs around the world and mainly implements technical cooperations projects and many sectors and many countries and many regions. For my projects, it's on energy sectors in the ASEAN region, which is ASEAN German Energy Program together with ACE. AGEP has been in ASEAN since 14 years ago in 2007, and our current projects will last until 2020 with possible extension. AGEP phase 1 and 2, as mentioned by Dr. Nuki, we have around 7 million euro with around 15 activities. Some of our activities that might relate to EE, and I think also address perfectly to points mentioned by Mas Bintang before in the second presentations, which is the 6th ASEAN Energy Outlook, launched in AMEM IBF last year, also shown by Rizky Kresnawan, thank you, in the beginning, where we also model the energy intensity forecast. The second one, we also support ACE on ASEAN Energy Database System or ADS. The third one, we also support on RE R&D in ASEAN, matchmaking ACE with the ASEAN University Network or AUN and AFEO, the Federal Engineering Associations. The fourth one, we also support the institutional and personal capacity development of ACE and their staffs. And of course, related to this event, related to this webinar, we also do the energy efficiency financing workshop with AIIB, hopefully by June this year. Next slide, please. Yeah. So maybe I will start with what was the GIZ support in the past from the projects that might relate to the APIC phase 2. Next slide again, please. It's mentioned by Patrick before, regional approach is indeed important, very important. Hence, GIZ also supports not only on bilateral level, but also on the regional level through AGE phase 1, which was started in 2016 and 2019. AGE phase 1 had developed financial support mechanism for sustainable EE and NC implementations, where we produce 4 publications on EE, e-financing guidelines for Thailand and Malaysia, mapping of e-financing in ASEAN, and best practices on e-financing for building in Thailand. This definitely can be followed up for the APIC phase 2 on the ENC program area, especially on enhancing participation of private sector and financial institution, and also advancing EE on industrial sector. Next, and also those publications can also be downloaded in our website. Next slide, please. And then we also want to show you our work on mapping green building code in ASEAN, where the study also gave a technical and policy recommendation on green building code application in ASEAN. Not all countries has this code already, but we did the map, and we also did recommend some policy technical. This is very much actually related to the EE program area on APIC. On the sustainability of EE in buildings, I also suggest this to be followed up for the APIC phase 2. And next slide, please. And then, next slide, please. And then we go to the bilateral projects, where there are only 2 bilateral projects, GIZ bilateral projects, who works on EE in ASEAN member states. The first one, come to the previous. I think you missed one slide. Can you go to the previous slide, please? Yes. So the first one is the Green Chiller with Indonesian Energy Ministry or EBTKA, where the projects plan to develop the strategy to achieve the NDC target by 2030. Green Chiller was funded by the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, or BMU, and they are focusing on the promoting the use of natural refrigerants and e-technology in Indonesian RAC, the refrigeration and air conditioning markets. They did it through establishment of framework conditions, pilot projects, and capacity building to Indonesian stakeholders. This is also definitely can be upscaled to the regional level on APAC, particularly on expanding and harmonizing EE standards and labeling. Next slide, please. Then we go to the other IMS, which is Vietnam. There is a project called 4E, or Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. They are funded by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, or BMZ. Previous one is BMU and now BMZ. The partner is MOIT, Vietnam Ministry of Technical Industry, I think. And the objective is to develop the legal, regulatory, and institutional precondition, as well as channeling investment towards energy efficiency and renewable energy. Through this project, they develop a legal to improve energy audit procedures, as well as energy management system by reviewing the current energy efficiency policy framework in Vietnam and develop the EE database. This is also very much related to the APAC on advancing EE and energy management in industry. Next slide, please. Lastly, from the support from the Vietnam is the Facilitated Technology Cooperation, where GIZ and MOIT try to make the research institution and private sector through study tours. This is also related to APAC on enhancing participation of private sector and financial institutions to organize such as business forums and matchmaking. We also do it in AG Phase 2 now, but for RE R&D. Next slide, please. So after we see the past support, which can also follow up for the APAC Phase 2, let's see the current support from projects on APAC and ENC sector. Next slide, please. The first activity comes from our projects, which is the AG Phase 2, started in 2019 until 2022. Next year, we plan to conduct regional workshop on EE financing to update and exchange the current state of energy efficiency financing in ASEAN. We also try to identify financial proposal of EE project and, of course, potential business matchmaking between EE stakeholders. We collaborate with AIIB and ACE on conducting this workshop, hopefully by June this year. Again, it also relates to the APAC on enhancing participation of private sector and financial institutions. Next slide, please. We also not only AGEP who has extension, the 4E in Vietnam also has extension project. For E Phase 2, focus on providing technical assistance facilities such as advisory and capacity building through R&D, not only on EE but also for RE, and they also try to update energy policy with MOIT for RE and EE. This also definitely relate to APAC on advancing EE and energy management in industry, and of course conducting capacity building and information sharing of ENC best practice. Next slide, please. Lastly, from Vietnam, the project also acts as a secretariat to the Vietnam Energy Partnership Group, or VEPG, where they coordinate mutual and political discussion among various IOs and DPs with Vietnam government. They have few working groups, and there is an EE group. And for the EE group, they are focusing on promoting EE in all aspects of society, developing specific target for energy-intensive sector, and creating investment climate for the private sector. Again, very much related to the APAC on enhancing participation of private sector and financial institutions and advancing energy efficiency in industry. Next slide, please. Again. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So for the last slide, I would like to show what would be the future possibilities of GIZ support to the APAC Phase 2. Before we saw about the past support, we saw about the current support. Now there are future possible support, although still tentative. As you might realize from my slide before, our project AGEP ended by next year, 2022. Currently, we are working on the extension project of AGEP from 2023 until 2025. The focus of the projects will be more about sustainable energy building, including RE and EE study, EE in industry, energy performance benchmark and guidelines, and of course, ASEAN building energy label. Not only that, not only about AGEP, there is also another initiative from DKTI, another projects led by GIZ Thailand for selected IMS. I think it's only for some countries like Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and some other countries, and of course the ASEAN itself as the region. So these future projects plan to develop policy document on sustainable refrigerant use, develop digital services for EE projects such as energy audit and energy management system, and of course channeling or networking the IMS and private sector with the development banks such as AIB or ADB on EE. Next slide, please. Yes, that would be close. That will close my presentations. Thank you very much for your attention. Feel free to ask questions and send email if you want to further discuss about my presentation. Thank you very much, and back to you, Pak Nuki, for being the moderator.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Rizky Fauzianto, for the nice presentation. You explain and explore on the GIZ and the AGEP support. You also mentioned the financial support mechanism for sustainable ENC implementation, including mapping on a green building code. And you explain a lot of the various projects and programs in Vietnam, including the energy audit procedure, legal and regulatory framework, and of course the regional projects. And the important things that you also mention is the potential on business matchmaking. I think it's quite important that we don't focus only on the technical part, but also the business matchmaking. I think it's very interesting. Perhaps many audience will ask about this. And of course, you also mentioning the future activities on the AGEP. Once again, thank you very much for your kind presentation. So now the session for question and answer. I may ask all of the speakers, panelists to turn on your camera. So we received quite plenty of questions. So first, I would like to wait a second. The question to all, yeah, please pay attention on this question. So I will ask all of you to respond one by one, starting from Mas Rizky Krishnawan, and then follow with Mr. Bintang, and then Patrick Blake, and also Rizky. Does the pandemic affecting the ENC efforts? Whether is it for better or worse? And the second question is what is the perspective of hydrogen as alternative energy in ASEAN? And the third question is how can the activities of ENC in the region support the climate change mitigation efforts? And the fourth question is what are the potential of economic benefit, including job creation of ENC? And last question is what are the gaps of ENC in the region? So this question is to all of you. You may answer, either you can answer all of these 5 questions, or you can pick some of the question according on your preferences. Yeah, I think we may start with Rizky Krishnawan. Please, you may respond your opinion on this. You respond on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Noki, for your presentation and also for the opportunity to answer the questions. It is indeed you mentioned around 5 questions that really interesting to see the answer from other panelists in here. So from the perspective of ASEAN Energy Outlook, in address to the first question related to the pandemic effects to the energy efficiency efforts, yes, some of the projects we did the projections that in 2020 we predict that the energy consumption and also energy supply has been dropped due to the economic drop as well in the region. And then, but after the pandemic, we predict that the economic will be rebound, and then some of the related delayed projects or also the efforts that being planned in the 2020, it's actually carry out to the post pandemic, maybe in 2021 this year or maybe in next year. Yeah, but indeed it affects the whole energy sector, including the energy efficiency efforts that being translated in countries' policy and also regulations. The second one, the perspective of the hydrogen. Yeah, to discuss about the hydrogen is also interesting because yeah, indeed in AO6 we didn't clearly state it what kind of efforts that ASEAN could do in order to deploy more the hydrogen, because while we're developing the report, the hydrogen economic beneficial is still debatable, and then there are some issues still in how to produce the hydrogen itself that still under consideration. Yes, but in we hope that in the future ASEAN Energy Outlook, we can address the issue of hydrogen as well. From the climate perspective, more efforts on energy efficiency could reduce all of the consumption, which lead to the energy supply saving as well. As I mentioned in my presentation, there is a gap that from not there's gap. There is this amount of saving from the baseline scenario to the ATS scenario, which already incorporate all the regional efforts to achieve the regional target. It leads to the how many supply side being reduced. The reduction in supply side is also leads to the how many NTOE that ASEAN could import from other region in regards to the fossil fuel, because we can conserve more and then we can save more in we didn't rely much on the fossil fuel if we can conserve in our demand side sector. The fourth and the fifth one I will try to tailor into one answer related to the economic benefits and also how's the gap in ENC and also the between the target, our actual conditions, also target that being stated in 2025. Yes, there's still a gap. We need to achieve 30%, and this gap can be achieved by many actions that I just mentioned in my presentations, from industry sectors, from transportation sectors, from residential and also commercial. Each of these sector will have each their own specific benefits for the economic things. Many of the, let's say, take consideration for industry. If industry sector could adopt more emission standards, more ambitious emissions, it will lead to the more conservation in there and also more saving, which lead to the more benefit for economic perspective, that the industry could invest more in another part of their business and also to expand their business this also be possible if we conserve the we increase the emission standard, and then we can save more energy consumption in the industry sector. I think I hope that it's all answer the questions from Dr. Nuki. Back to you, Dr. Nuki. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Rizky. So what about Bintang, Mr. Bintang? What do you think?
Okay, so I will answer in the exact order. First, about the pandemic. Yes, it will. It is affecting the energy efficiency effort. At first, in a good way, especially in the transport sector, as people are mobilizing less with this pandemic, and there is a shift from the commercial sector to the residential sector. However, I'm also agree with Rizky about the potential of the energy increase after the pandemic. There is people will become more less frugal about the energy consumption after the pandemic. It's like they kind of let loose after this event. However, if we are create a awareness of the energy efficiency in this current moment, it will give a less impact to the current effort that is will be better. Next is about the hydrogen. I have seen less about the prospect of hydrogen in the ASEAN, and that is for me because the hydrogen is a kind of battery or energy storage, and ASEAN itself still has less renewable energy than it's for its own use. That is, we are still cannot be able to use the battery or the hydrogen as the energy storage. That is my opinion about the hydrogen. In addition, in ASEAN itself, we also starting to use the biofuel, and the biofuel itself is the kind of fuel which is comparable to the hydrogen, and it is, I think, better in the carbon neutrality and also for the prospect in the ASEAN as a tropical region. About the current perspective of the ENC, I believe yes, it will affecting the final consumption, and it's just like owning a car. You want to have a car that is for 1 liter you can go far less kilometer than you buy a old car or maybe a non-efficient car that you can get a less kilometer with the same amount of fuel. So by using the by applying the higher energy efficiency tools and equipment, and also by practicing the energy conservation, this will also decrease the total energy consumption. For the economic benefits, it is very hard to notice because it is saving. So saving is like you have to have a benchmark first that you are very royal, where you use very much of it, and then you start saving. Then you can see different between the maximum and the minimum you can spend on something you use. So the economic benefit in ENC kind of hard to see, but it is there. For job creation, I think it is also not so much there to see, but it is creating a more in the renewable energy and the energy accountant. So people are starting to in higher energy industry or in the commercial sector. People are starting to use up to hire more energy management in their sites. So there's still a bit of a job creation, but more of job creation are in the renewable energy, not the energy efficiency and conservation. Lastly, about the gaps in the energy efficiency and conservation in ASEAN, I still believe that the financing is still the highest gap in the policy because it is a high risk and how to say it? Like I said before, because the benefit is kind of invisible, so high risk and almost no return, it seems. And also because of the high risk, the investors are afraid to invest in this kind of long-term investment, especially in the industrial sector. Lastly, for the gaps in the common term, is more important to the demand side. So if the user are more compelling to use the higher efficient appliance, so it will also increase the energy efficiency in the region. I think that is all from me, Dr. Nuki. Back at you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Bintang. So what do you think, Patrick?
Thanks, Dr. Nuki. Yeah, starting with the first one on the impacts of COVID. I think COVID has, in many economies, allowed consumers to think through and on the products they need. So focusing on what I'm working on as far as appliances, whether it's better cooling where they are, since many of us were in one location throughout this time, or better lighting in their homes. So I think in many economies there was increased purchase of new products, in some cases improved products. So that certainly will have an impact. And of course, there it's important that policies that were developed in the past, but of course going forward as well, that policies are in place. But also related to that is on data and availability of for governments to be able to track the types of products in their country, and that's relating to the product registration work that we're doing. I think through COVID, governments have seen more the importance to understand and the power of data, and having a better awareness of the products in their markets and where they're coming from and the type of products they are does provide benefits to them. And there as well, it is not on the work that we're doing is not only for domestic appliances, but more broadly on the cold chain. And countries have looked a lot at the cold chain, not only for vaccines, but also for food waste to reduce that. So I would say through COVID, certainly countries have seen this as an opportunity through their recovery plans to put in place more stringent procurement specifications and standards, as really providing that as an opportunity to improve the products that enter the market going forward. Then on the economic side, to that question, the energy efficiency does provide benefits in economic benefits, and I did present on that briefly as far as electricity bill savings, that the consumer has increased savings, that the product would reduce the consumption. So replacing an older, very inefficient product can actually result in savings for a consumer to have not only an improved product, but also one that consumes less electricity. So that provides benefits for that consumer, but also more broadly for the economy. Then on the job side, there are some opportunities on how to link this as far as through retailers, but also that end of life of these products, that they need to be handled properly. So different take-back schemes, and that the products are recycled at the end of life. So there are ways, and of course, jobs through that as well, so that the product's not going into the general waste stream. Then on the final one on gaps in efficiency. So there are gaps, and that's of course what we're working with ACE to fill. countries, not all countries have standards in place for these products. And that's why it is important that they develop standards, because if not, they will be the location for inefficient products to continue to be sold, because there's a decreasing amount of countries with policies in place. And there it's important that they're also updated over time as well. Thanks. Back to you, Dr. Nuki.
Okay, great. Thanks, Patrick. So what do you think, Rizky Fujianto?
Thank you, Pak Nuki, for the great questions. The first question about the pandemic. I see that in the pre-COVID-19 pandemic, the trend of energy transitions toward low carbon sources were positive, definitely. ASEAN countries' adoption of energy efficiency of the wind, solar, battery, electric vehicle were rapidly accelerating in some countries like Indonesia, Thailand. However, COVID-19 definitely has changed the strategic for many governments in any given country, including the ASEAN. The severity of the outbreak is influencing the form of the substantial economic measures and aspect of the stimulus decisions. In turn, might affect the speed and trajectory of energy transition in surprising ways. But nevertheless, ASEAN in particular, I see that have weathered the COVID-19 relatively well when viewed from the lens of the healthiness and social and economic impact. And their actions are sufficiently strong to adopt a creative and forward-looking COVID-19 stimulus plan. That being said, and also improvement of the cost competitiveness from the RE and also the increasing of energy efficiency use in the region in recent years, I believe the future of energy transition to be more clean and sustainable is bright in ASEAN. That's the first question about the COVID-19. The second question about the hydrogens. Germany also see this as a possible way to move from the fossil fuel. It has been considered as an advanced technology. Many need to also touch about this topic. In fact, we also might have it in AG phase 3. And not only that, bilateral projects in Indonesia actually already started that discussion with Energy Ministry. I also noted Brunei interest on hydrogen during last AMEM. So I believe also the hydrogens will be further explored in ASEAN in the maybe next 3 to 5 years. The third question about the economic benefit. Energy efficiency also provide economic benefit. I remember I read a study from other JZ project that actually economic benefit from EE on the consumption is far cheaper, but giving a larger impact rather than we deploy more renewable energy, which will be definitely more expensive. So EE on having energy efficiency and consumption is definitely far more giving impacts on the economic benefits. And on the job creations, I agree with Bintang. I mean, job creation is not so big on energy efficiency, unless maybe for energy audit, energy management system. But definitely, the increasing deployment of EE and also RE, especially in solar and wind, can create direct and indirect costs. Direct job includes solar and wind installer, and also, and if I'm not mistaken, from the IO6, the employment gains from the RE promotions in 2040 will be 303,000 for solar, and wind job is around 220,000. So it's create a bigger potential of job creation, not only on E but also on RE. So yeah, maybe not so big on RE, but still RE and E is like a brother and sister, so they are connected each other. Lastly, about the gaps on ENC, I agree. Standard is needed from the region, from the ACE and the MS, and the interest from the private sector to work on energy efficiency projects also need to be increased, maybe through the matchmaking. I think that's all from my side. Back to you, Pak Nuki.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Rizky. Indeed, very interesting discussion for these first 5 questions, all of you. The pandemic, it is influencing the whole EE portfolio, and financial support is important as well. So go back to Patrick. How significant the roadmaps contribute to net zero scenario if later states ASEAN committed to this? Can you respond, Patrick?
Yeah, so as far as the contributions to net zero, energy efficiencies in many countries, one of the larger contributors. as we saw, normally the products that we're looking at are consuming more than half of the electricity consumption. And through that as well, there's significant savings in the range of 30 to 50%. So for one action that countries can take to move their economy to net zero, energy efficiency does provide that. And that also enables other areas as well, such as renewables, because many of the products we're using have large peak load demand. And the point is really to reduce that when, and that allows for greater deployment of renewables, and also reducing the higher emission power generation as well, that when you do remove that peak load. So it really not only provides benefits through its own reductions, but also allows for broader deployment in the other areas. And countries can consider other benefits on the cooling side in particular. So moving to lower global warming potential refrigerants. So there you're not only working on one side, but also on the efficiency side, but also on the refrigerants. So it's 2 for 1, you see. Back to you, Dr. Nuki.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So meaning that the energy efficiency is important on the net zero scenario for the futures, and will be part of the pathway to achieve that one. Somehow energy transition need the energy efficiency strongly to be implemented. Yeah. Okay. Great. For Rizky Fauzianto, how is AGEP continue their support in energy efficiency in the region, considering the new APAC phase 2?
Yes, thank you, Pak Nuki. I mean, if you for these questions, if you see from my last slide, actually, we also already pointed out that we will do some activities on energy efficiency to answer this APAC phase 2, not only about AGEP, but also other projects in the region, like for the KTI from GIZ Thailand, which they will touch selected some countries, but also it's upscaling to the regional level. What we see from the topic for the AGEP phase 3, such as, let's say, sustainable energy in EE building initiative, or EE in industry, because I think EE industry is also one of the topic from the KTI. I think it's also interested by IMS. And then energy performance benchmark and guidelines, and the lastly energy Asean building energy label. I think those 4 from AGEP that we see, while from the KTI, they also thinking to kind of like develop the sustainable refrigerant use policy, or the digital services for EE, such as energy audit or energy management system, the digitalized one. And of course, channeling between the IMS and also with the development banks for the financial support. I think those answer so many points in APAC phase 2. Hopefully, GIZ support to these 2 projects in the future can also help APAC to fulfill the target of energy efficiency or intensity. Back to you, Pak Nuki.
Yeah, thank you, Rizky Fauzianto. Indeed, very interesting to have more financial support from this banking system, I think. Again, the next question is for for Bintang. In the industrial sectors, what kind of policies or regulation that ASEAN should adopt immediately, as it is you mentioned in your presentation? Please, Bintang.
Hello. Yes, sorry. Okay. So from a presentation, there's in the industrial sector there are some potential in save some energy in there. I really recommend that for the region or the country to shift to a more energy safe, less energy intensive industry, such as the creative industry or the service industry. However, for the non-service or non-digitalized industry, we need to adopt a higher efficiency equipment or machinery. So another minimum energy performance system is needed for the in the industry. Also, another opinion for me that is about the fuel switching. So by using another kind of fuel to use in the industry, perhaps the most common is in the iron furnace. There are some already using their own furnace to supply the energy for the industry. That is from me, I guess, from the industrial sector. Back to you, Pak Nuki.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Bintang. And then question for Rizky Krisnawan. You mentioned about the transportation sector. So what kind of policies or regulation that ASEAN should adopt immediately, as you also as you mentioned in your slides? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Nuki. Yeah, basically there are 4 efforts that ASEAN member states government should do in regards to transportation sector. The first one in biofuel. In biofuel itself, there are 2 sides, for demand side and also supply side, that needs government support. Maybe to deploy more or to boost more the biofuel, the government for the demand side should implement the tax subsidies for the biofuel vehicles, and then also to subsidize the biofuel price itself, and maybe gather the public procurement program, such as the government fleet, all of the government fleet using biofuel, and also could be using the EV. For the supply side, maybe making the greater profit margins for the biofuel cells is also interesting. So the investor might think that they invest, their investment could return to their pocket immediately, and then this could be supported by policies and investment itself in to increase the yields, the agricultural yields. The third one is maybe to increase the biofuel research and development, since maybe the next generation should be near. And then for that's the first one for the biofuel. Second one for EV, maybe tax-free. Could implement tax-free, so it could reduce the cost of electric vehicle. And then the second one, maybe massive development of charging infrastructure that support EV deployment itself in the country. And then maybe to conduct the feasibility study for each ASEAN member states to see how feasible EV deployment in each ASEAN member states, since they have their own characteristic that difference one to another. And then the third one is to improve the fuel economy, especially for the current vehicle that's already on the road. Increasing the fuel economy, it could reduce the average of energy consumption in transportation sector. Then this reduction is could lead to the reduced energy demands, also the supply side. And then the last one is to improve the public transport and also to increase the awareness to use the public transport. This can be done with to increase as well the rail and bus coverage, and then there's a need to integrate both of it. So all of the the people that would travel could use the public transport. So it's also supported by the beautiful pedestrians infrastructure, because many reasons that people don't go with the public transport, because the pedestrians is not friendly in their opinion. So they prefer to use their own cars or their own motorcycles to move from one place to another. So those three recommendations for public transport is also being maybe can be considered for ASEAN member states to as part of the energy efficiency efforts in the transportation sectors. Back to you, Dr. Nuki. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rizky. I think your last point is very interesting indeed on the public transportation sectors. You know, the COVID-19 impacting the people behavior, how to commute and so on. How do you think that this pandemic will influencing on the people to avoid using public transport, whether it will influence the whole perspective of the target on reducing the energy consumption in transportation sectors?
Yeah, if we talk about the pandemic, yes, in the short time, maybe it will affect how people willing to use the public transport. But since the vaccines being rolled out, I think the plan to move from the private vehicle to public transport might be gain more attractions in the post-pandemic, I believe, because more people aware that the environmental things is really affect their behavior, and if this behavior changing again to use the private vehicles and they see the traffic, they will face the traffic, because the economic rebound and all of the office will be work from office again, and then the traffic will be there's a congestion in everywhere. And I think there's a lot of reason that this could able to still refer to the public transport rather than to use their private own vehicle. I think that's my answer, Dr. Noki.
Yeah, okay, indeed, I do agree with you that in the short term, public transport is still being impacted by the COVID-19, but on the longer term, then it will back to normal when the COVID-19 being, treated very well by the vaccine through the vaccination. Thanks, and then there is a question for Patrick. How is the development of product registration system, you mentioned about this before, could effectively support the EE enhancement in the region?
Thanks, Dr. Nuki. As far as the product registration system goes and how it supports energy efficiency in the region, what it does is allows for greater visibility and greater awareness on the types of products that are in the markets. And this is helpful in the first sense that in setting of standards, that standards, before you set them, of course, you need to know what is in the market. So through that, by looking in the system and seeing what products are in the market, you can set a level that is stringent and pushes the market further to more efficient products, but of course doesn't set the level too high and make the products too costly or something like that. And then also on the enforcement of the policies as well, that when there is a standard in place, that the product registration system allows a centralized database in one country, or as I mentioned, throughout the region, that there's greater visibility on the products that are compliant, and the ones not in the systems are not compliant. So that is very helpful, whether it's at customs, for the customs official to check what products are compliant before they allow them into the market, and then also for regular checks to be done in the market to ensure that the products there are compliant. And then more broadly, built on top of this can also be different consumer apps as well, and that allows for data as well to be shared more directly to the end user on the product that they're buying. So they see perhaps on an app that this product will save them X amount in electricity bills, and that of course would help incentivize the purchase of these products. So that's just a few examples of how the product registration system can help in energy efficiency in the region. Back to you, Dr. Nuki.
Yeah, perfect. I do agree with you that market assessment is important to start with for this PRS. Next question for Bintang. You are working in ACE. Do you see the trend of higher efficiency on air conditioner in the region? How the ASEAN Center for Energy looking at this trend?
Yes, so in the last few years, the energy efficiency for air conditioner is on the rise. It is also because the market leader, that is China, has aggressively increasing their energy efficiency for air conditioner. And from the side of Asian Center for Energy, that is ACE, we are trying to increase the regional maps. Lastly, we have a meeting for the energy efficiency subsectoral network between the ASEAN member state. Then we recommend to adopt a higher maps that is more suitable to the available model or available air conditioner in the market, because from what we have collected the data, the model in the ASEAN has already ready to increase the maps in the ASEAN. So this is what from the ACE can do to to follow through with the higher efficiency air conditioner available readily in the market. That is through the regional effort to increase the maps, and we can also help with from the regional to the national level to increase the maps of each country. That's from me. Okay, back to you.
Okay, thank you. So regional coordination, collaboration, as well as strong communication with member state is very important, yeah, to make sure that it's being successfully, delivered. So a question for Rizky Fauzianto. You mentioning about the financial perspective as well as the business matchmaking. So how do you see the potential of these financial support as well as business matchmaking on the acceleration of the EE? And what will be the bottlenecks or the issues why the energy efficiency is not that progressive in comparison with, for example, in Europe?
Thank you, Pak Nuki, for the great. Thank you, Pak Nuki, for the great questions. Yes, I think to answer that, we will see in June where we will have the e-financing workshop, where we will invite the financial institution like the bankers and also from the private sectors, and see if they will be interested to help the private sector to work on energy efficiency. But I do believe yes, because according to the study and other projects in GIZ, in some countries, actually financing is also see this energy efficiency as a sector that they want to finance. It's only they need some like guidelines or standards or best practices that they see that it's a good thing that they can it's a good profitable sector that they can invest. So to answer that, I believe yes, and we will see much more on June when we have this e-financing workshop. And the question on why what was the bottleneck, again, the standards, the guidelines, there is no clear guidelines, there is no kind of like a best practices that the financial sector can be confident they can finance this sector, the energy efficiency financing. So I suggest the same with RE, to have more like a guideline standards and have a best practice to show as a showcase that this is actually a good and profitable sector to be financed by the banks. Thank you, Panki.
Yeah, thank you, Rizky. I think it's including the off-taker issues where it happens in the RE sectors. ENC also are facing the same issues. I do agree with you. Okay, great, perfect. Thank you. So one question to everyone. So what is your expectation, yeah, on these international organization activities, on these intergovernmental, organization activities, on accelerating the EE in the region? What is your opinion or ideas or expectation when we talk on when we expect from the member states? Please, Rizky.
Rizky Fauzianto.
Sorry,
all right.
Rizky
I'll ask
Kasnaman.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry. We have to Rizky.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nuki. Yeah. As a regional think tank, is the intergovernmental organization could taking a role as they're mandated as a catalyst and also a think tank, and also they have a knowledge hub for ASEAN member states. So in this regard, we can advocate the countries through studies that we are conducted internally, and also with other DPs and IOs, such as with UNEP, U4E, and also GIZ that being supported us since many years ago. Yeah, advocating the countries will be the most important, because all of the studies that we conducted, if it's not translated to the country, it will produce nothing. But if we're able to communicate the findings, the recommendations, and then the country able to adopt in their respective country, it will be a milestone for the intergovernmental organizations such as ACE to improve the EE efforts in the region. Yeah, many studies, including to standards, maybe making standards labeling, and also many other efforts could be interesting to be studied by ACE, and also with other dialogue partners, and also in other international organizations, since many our outcome-based strategies in ENC need to be conducted, the study, and we need to deliver this as an annual milestone, so we could, as a region, we could move to the better energy efficiency efforts in the region. I hope that answered your question, Dr. Nuki. Back to you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. What do you think, Bintang?
Sorry, could you repeat again the question, so maybe I can get clear point of view?
Yeah, so what is your expectation from IOs on these energy efficiency issues in the region, and what will be the beneficial for the member states through the collaboration in the IOs?
Okay, so from my point of view, that is the IOs are coming from the more developed country, and then they have a more better technology. Then having an help from them, from the IOs, it can increase our in the IMS development of the EE, energy efficiency. Also with the technology they are bringing, we can be shared with us, and we can have a more let's say have develop or can develop a more energy efficient economics here without the sacrificing the economic status of the rising economics that is the AMS held. Also, the proponent that is from the IOs to the AMS, because through the ACE, the Asean Center for Energy clearly have to side with the AMS more than the IOs. So we are has to have the beneficial effect from the IOs in the giving the giving the aids. So maybe because if the technology is too specific or that the way is too specific to the IOs, I think it can reduce the impact of the energy efficiency, but not but it also it will increase the dependency of the AMS to the IOs. So there will be the help from the IOs. The will be very helpful to the AMS, but we need to be careful about it. That is my point of view.
Okay, thank you. What do you think, Patrick?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Nuki. Continuing on from the other comments, so the regional efforts really contribute to completing things in a holistic manner and aligning across the region. So it's not only done on a country by country basis, but that throughout the 10 countries are heading towards, for example, aligned maps on lighting or on cooling. And from our perspective, it's really the sharing of experiences amongst the countries with the international experience as well. We heard previously on examples from China, from Europe, from North America. So it's really one thing we try to do is really bring in those other experiences as well to show where there's global trends as far as air conditioners, for example, in order to have a aligned approach for implementing standards in this case. And then, of course, that does need to be taken forward on the ground. So I think through that, the regional effort is certainly important and can help as well to accelerate implementation. In that there are some countries with policies, for example, and these experiences can be shared with other countries to help them catch up to those levels, and then to go forward as well, that policies are continue to be updated over time in an ambitious manner. So that's it from my side. Back to you, Dr. Nuki.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Patrick. What do you think, Rizky Fauzianto?
Yes, thank you, Pak Nuki. So basically, I just want to address that IOs here basically to give assistance. So most benefit, I believe, or at least for GIZ, will go to the IMS. But in order to have the energy transitions, we have to do holistic approach, not only on RE, but also on EE and other new technologies, clean coal, EV, so whatever like that. I would say from the point of view of international organization, the matchmaking or the exchange among the IOs and IMS and ACE is important. Let's say like conducting partner coordination meetings to see who's doing what and what the existing study already in the IMS in the regions. So it's not like duplicating, but more to complete each other. As we can see also from the last EI target in IOS in the UPHIC, it is increasing, right? It means that the perspective is bright. ASEAN wants to do more. So basically, so ACE and IOS can actually align what the excess activity and what the IOS can support in order to have sustainable energy transition in the regions. Back to you, Panuki. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rizky Fauzianto. I think we are on the end of the session. because the time is not in our favor. So I would like to close with some takeaways and recommendation. We talk a lot on this session that the pandemics is indeed influencing the EE efforts, but definitely not in the transportation sectors, and more on the household, buy more appliances, also part of this impact from the on the pandemics. And then hydrogen is part of the future solution. EENC provide economic benefits, that's for sure. And one of the most important is standardization, which is important, especially in member states, through market assessment. Yeah, financial support is important. Business matchmaking is also important. Non-technical measures to increase the energy efficiency in the region. I think I do agree with that. Financial support and business matchmaking. I think we need to more increase these opportunities. Fuel switching in industrial sectors and transportation sectors is also indeed quite important. And government support on financial support, biofuel R&D, subsidies, tax incentive, and also tax incentive both for biofuel and EV is also indeed very important. And the government should pay more attention on the charging infrastructure. And according to the last question, how to solve the issues on the perspective of IOs, IOs as a think tank organization is quite important to have the strong collaboration and also lead the labeling standardization. Important to conduct lesson learned from modern countries. Aligning across the region is also important. And of course, sharing experiences indeed is very crucial point. So thank you very much once again for all of the panelists, Muhammad Rizky Krisnawan, Bintang Wardana, Patrick Blake, and Rizky Fauzianto for your effort, for your insightful thought and insightful presentation. So once again, thank you very much for your time, and hope you can enjoy your evening for the speakers living in Indonesia and in the region, and of course your afternoon lunch for Patrick. So once again, stay safe and stay healthy. Hope to see you next time. Thank you very much, and back to you, Nela. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nuki, for your excellent role as the moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our webinar today. But before I close this meeting, I would like to invite all of you to turn on, to still turn on your camera, as we will have a group photo together. Okay, in 3, 2, 1. One more time. 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. On behalf of the ASEAN Center for Energy, I would like to say thank you again to Dr. Nuki and all of the great speakers, Rizky Krisnawan, Bintang Widana, Patrick Blake, and Rizky Fauzianto. I hope that we learned something from today's webinar, and thank you again to all of the audience for your enthusiasm for joining us here today, and look forward to meeting you in another event. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.